Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the cyber.tap podcast. We're back once again. The OG hosts, the real talent, the brainchild behind the podcast. Mike, Matt, we're here. Mike, how the heck are you?
Well, they keep bringing us back. I feel like
I think it's something.
Is there something going on that we don't know about? I mean, are we going to get
down.
like? I mean, that's probably what it is.
Well, we had not really hosted too many of these since the video format had been added. And so typically these would start with a longer riff where Mike and I would just talk about nonsense. But I think that doesn't fit as well when there's video because people watching the video are like, are they ever going to talk to the other people across the So I think it's good we go ahead and introduce our guests first, then we can all chat a bit and get into the topic at some point. So today we are joined by Dr. Joe Beckman from cyberTAP. Any fan of the cyberTAP podcast will know Joe, as he is always in the running for the golden mic for the most visits to the podcast. But we have a new face. I think first time on the podcast. We have Craig Jackson. Now, Mike, control yourself. Craig comes to us from CACR, the cyber, help me out.
Center for Applied Cybersecurity Research.
At IU.
No.
Indiana. We knew that was coming.
Oh.
Hey, but I was thinking about this. This is Hate Week. Hate Week is the week leading into the Purdue IU basketball game for the first time. They play tomorrow.
They do?
And it's full of rivalry and hatred, but today it's love and brotherhood around cybersecurity, yeah?
Yes.
So, Craig, welcome. Thank you for being here. We had some meetings where you and Joe were presenting, and I think the brain trust behind the podcast thought, hey, you're here. Let's get it done. Let's get you on here.
Awesome.
So we are going to be talking about CyberTrack, the program, which has been mentioned, I know, even in previous seasons when Mike, you and I were more involved. However, before we get into that, let's go ahead and talk about some nonsense. So it is, as I mentioned, Hate Week, IU, Purdue. Who do you have? Who do you think's got the game tomorrow night? It's in Mackey, Purdue versus IU. Predictions on the game right now. I want to hear it. Now, we don't mention this a lot either. Joe, where are your degrees from?
My undergrad is from IU.
Oh my gosh!
Oh, how did he make it past the HR?
But your
gatekeepers?
PhD grad
from
work is
Purdue.
here. Okay, so you're a perfect representative for the partnership we have here as well because you've got feet in both worlds. Okay, but who's your pick for the game?
Well, I would just throw out the word massacre.
Ooh,
I think it's going to be a
Famously.
dominant performance. I don't think Purdue's going to lose to this IU team in Mackey. I just don't think it's going to happen. I appreciate the talent, paid and bought and paid.
which is totally legal now, by the way.
It
It's
is,
okay
yeah.
to say your talent.
I've seen them, and I just don't think they
They're
can
not
put it
ready.
all together. I don't think they're ready for Mackey.
But this is Purdue IU.
It is.
Every record goes out the window.
And if you ask
every
me this question,
all
if
bit
it's
of
in
talent.
Assembly Hall, I might have a different answer.
Okay. Joe, what do you think?
Yeah, I'd take Purdue too, mainly because I've watched the IU team perform, and I don't think they're ready either. I don't think it's ever going to be a massacre. I think those are pretty rare, but I do think Purdue has the edge, especially at Mackey.
Craig, do you have an opinion on the matter?
No.
Yeah, say
I will
you're
say-
an enemy territory
I will say,
representative.
if we surprise,
Kick your butts, and that there's been some surprise kick your butts things that have happened. I will wear my butter yellow sweater at the next CyberTrack meeting to kind of
soften the blow for us.
to
Thank you.
show that
Solidarity.
yes, sir.
What'd you wear after the Oak and Bucket game?
The one where we lost 66
Yes,
to
that was a
0.
slaughter. It was
I
that was a massacre. It's the other way around.
Yeah.
A very nice yellow sweater.
Okay. all
Okay,
right.
very good. We appreciate that. So I think it's going to be another Purdue win in the series. I do think that. I agree. If it was an Assembly Hall, you just never know. IU struggling. Thank you to the IU football team for getting our coach fired and letting us get a reboot. This may be a return. If there is, as Mike predicted, a massacre, you could see a changing of the guard pretty quickly at IU basketball. But we'll see what happens with that. I think it'll be fun. Okay, Eric had put down some show notes for us here, so thanks, Eric. And I was looking them over. This is a lot more testy, and I don't think there's a real answer here. It says, who's better at cyber, IU or Purdue? And that's not even close. We're equal in every way, right? No. What I have discovered, and this is true, not just because Craig's here, but when we entered into the partnership for CyberTrack with IU, I didn't really know the capacity of IU Cyber. I mean, I was aware of CACR and had crossed paths with Shackelford and other people at IU just a little bit. But it has been such a great partnership, very complementary skills. So, Craig, what in your experience so far? We're not really going to say who's better or who's worse.
No.
But what has your experience been so far in this collaboration and kind of that? What I've noticed, curious if you've seen the same thing where you have a bit of a good complementary skill base and things like that.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, it's a real like classic Venn diagram, right? We absolutely have overlapping experience and expertise, and then there's the complementary stuff. It would be easy to kind of oversimplify it and say, well, the IU folks have more of this focus on the organizational piece, policy, the higher level governance, things like that. And, Purdue has more of the technical chops. I think there's way more overlap than that. CyberTAP on paper is not a research organization, very service oriented, but we have people, Joe, not the least of which Joe Beckman here, who are performing the research work on CyberTrack in ways that really I'm not sure that my little organization has quite his capability, right? And so I think it's been, not just like a all hands on deck. We kind of need to bring everybody together to get this work done. I truly think in terms of expertise, it's been a great balance.
So Joe, why don't you start us by just reintroducing the audience, the listener? So I think we have more than one again. I'm not sure, but reintroducing the audience if they're not familiar with it. Just the origin of CyberTrack. High level elevator pitch, however you want to introduce everyone to what is CyberTrack, how did it start, where did it come from?
So CyberTrack is Indiana's local government cybersecurity assessment program. What we do is, we bring local governments into a cybersecurity assessment regime. They volunteer, express their interest. And what we do together is, we've customized an assessment methodology to best fit or to fit well that local government audience. And we give them assessment that leverages both universities' expertise in cybersecurity. The goals here are a couple. The first one is obviously to help local governments move cybersecurity posture forward, right? We don't want to see local governments become victims of cybersecurity attacks any more than, anybody else, any other industry that we service. But the second is, and I think to put it in terms of IIJA might be appropriate here. If we're going to spend money, federal, state money, to move cybersecurity forward in this space, we need to do that with as much intelligence as we can. And so, part of one of the goals of the program is to be able to take the aggregate results from these assessments as we go out into the communities and do our work, and say, state of Indiana, you want to help local governments move posture forward. These places would be good ones to start to start working on. We really need, for example, a cybersecurity resource center that does these things, that provides these services, or that connects locals with certain resources at CISA or certain resources at MSISAC or within the universities. I think what makes this program so special is that not only were we able, against all odds, I would say maybe that's a little bit dramatic, to partner with IU, because we don't partner in a whole lot of things, especially bilaterally like this. But also that we found an enthusiastic sponsor in Tracy Barnes at IoT.
Yeah.
And between the three of us, the three entities, I think we've been able to make some really important and unlikely movements in this space to resource cybersecurity into local governments more effectively.
Yeah, I think there's a really brilliant move by the state, specifically Tracy that you mentioned, who is now the former CIO. He's just left the post with a administration change. He's decided to hang up his CIO boots, and I think he had served the state well. But I think in a moment of brilliance on his part, when we first were approaching the state about maybe launching this program, he said, "If you want to do it, let's do it with IU." And so, to his credit, definitely. And we said, of course, like it wasn't a kicking and screaming. It wouldn't necessarily have come from our idea. We were ready to go. But I think what we learned, and what we already mentioned, Craig, is that what we've discovered is that complementary and overlapping skills, and the two heads are better than one. And if the two big boys in the state, from a university perspective, are saying something, boy, people did listen or are listening. So I think that's been really, really interesting.
Were there any conversations about including other higher ed universities from the state, like the guys up north? Or
So those thoughts have been there and continue to be, although just getting this program going in a way that maximizes its benefits to locals and to the state, that's kind of where we've been focused at this point. To the extent that we do other things, that Joint Resource Center, which we're calling Centerline at this point, the Centerline initiative, to the extent that those things come off and get going, get traction in the state, I think you can see that. I could see there's an opening for that. But with CyberTrack, getting going and getting these 342 assessments done is what we're supposed to be, the number we're supposed to hit with our current agreement with the state. Getting a methodology built that works and making sure that we have that maximum impact both with the state and with the locals, that's really been our focus.
So I do want to hear about the go ahead, Craig. You want to say okay? We want to talk about the methodology, because I think there's some really interesting work that's been done there and some attention that has been garnered by it. But before we do that, Craig or Joe, tell us just a little bit about who it is that we're doing the assessments for. When you say local government, who is that? Kind of you don't have to give us the exact numbers of this type of entity and this type of entity, but who are we working with, and maybe any anecdotes or anything that's been like, especially with different types of organizations that you've worked with. Craig?
Oh, well, the range is counties, towns, townships, cities, utilities where there's a clear legal connection to K through 12, libraries. I think that covers most of it. Most of who we're working with.
I remember early on in the conversations there was a lot of debate, even at the state level, of what constitutes a local government and where we would focus energy and things like that.
Yeah, the assessment methodology and the approach could be applied much more broadly than it's not so tailored to smaller public entities that it can't be applied elsewhere. And so I do think that the exact edges of the scope of who we might serve with this are a little fuzzy. But the 92 counties in the state are definitely within scope.
have you received much resistance from any of those entities providing the services engagement?
It's a volunteer program, so the people that have come to the table have expressed their interest voluntarily, and so we don't get a lot of resistance per se, although there are situations where, for example, an elected leader would quote unquote sign their entity up, and then the IT folks would kind of cross their arms maybe a little bit. But to be honest with you, and I think one of the greatest things about our work together has been, you get when we do assessment, we pull together an assessment team of one CACR analyst and one cyberTAP analyst. And I'll tell you what, if you can still be resistant after you talk to these folks,
find a new job, right?
It's not been a barrier. It's not been an issue for us. Yeah. Our folks are top notch at what they do at both universities, and so, I think even the most resistant IT folks or local leaders would say, hey, these folks are genuinely out there trying to help. And I think that melts away pretty quickly.
I do think the biggest kind of challenge is getting people, through the door in the first place. Clearly, and some of the explicit feedback that we've gotten are from folks who have gotten the assessment is they realize quickly, okay, we're not showing up to judge you. We don't give you a score. Our big aggregate reports have scores so we can quantify data. They don't get a score. They just get as much help as we can give them,
Right.
given our limited time that we've got with them. So once we get organizations involved, I think the ROI and the tone gets set pretty quickly. This is a collaboration.
So, Craig, I've heard you talk about it, of course, because I've been in the meetings of CyberTrack and presentations, but this idea of a research-backed, evidence-based methodology for assessment that, spoiler alert, takes a subset of some control group and tries to create a effective and efficient methodology so we can go in there and make impact quick. That's the way I feel like I've categorized it. I would love for you to tell me if I'm all wet, first of all, but then also just talk about how we got to that point.
Yeah. So no, you've got it. So first I'll say that one of the areas where CACR has a lot of experience and strength is not just conducting cybersecurity assessments, but developing cybersecurity assessment methodologies. And I'd be remiss if I didn't explain that a lot of the CyberTrack methodology comes from another assessment methodology we developed for the U.S. Navy called PACT, P-A-C-T. Big difference, though. The big differences are driven by the fact that PACT was designed to be able to scale way up, and it wasn't we weren't thinking about having only 30 hours for a PACT assessment.
Sure.
We weren't thinking about it being $10,800 per assessment.
Time or cost limited.
Yeah.
And so, we've done some very big PACT assessments on critical infrastructure, and they've been valuable, but they've been expensive to do as the ones that we've been paid to do. Here, out of the gate, Tracy Barnes wanted us to reach a lot of people, right? And going back to the very purpose of the program, we're trying to inform state policy, but we're also trying to help all the individual organizations that say, yeah, sign me up. Like, we could use some advice, we could use some help. So he wanted a large number of assessments. We could have gotten an accurate picture of the state of cyber in the state with 20-something assessments probably if we selected, carefully. But he wanted to get us out there. So how the heck do we do that, right? How in 4 years with the award amount are we going to reach hundreds? It's funny, like, why are we talking about 342 assessments? It's because we're pretty good at sitting down and figuring out how much effort it's going to take. Like, give us an amount of money and we'll look at all these constraints and come up with something that we think we could do. This is where we really start to get into the evidence-based standard. Any assessment is going to have a standard that you're being assessed against.
Right.
If you meet a cyber assessor and you ask them what the standard is and they can't tell you, that's a flag.
Red flag.
That's at least a yellow flag, right? And so all of the work we do at CACR, we're trying to do it in an evidence-based way. We're always, talking about the problems posed by like NIST coming out with these control sets that are not prioritized, that are hundreds of controls long. There's no thought put into the cost of those. But when Tracy Barnes says, well, I want like hundreds of assessments done over this period of performance, like, okay, we got to take this evidence-based thing a step further. We can't cover everything, so we only want to cover the most proven, most truly important stuff. And that's how we, ended up doing the research that uncovered what we call the transformative 12 safeguards. we didn't go out and do like randomized controlled trials like that would, you
Right.
know, we didn't have 10 years. We had a,
Right,
we had a
yeah.
few
You'd
weeks
have a study to
actually,
run.
you know.
Yeah, sure.
So this wasn't meta-analysis in the statistical sense, but it was research at a meta level. We went out and found the very best of the best, actual like rigorous systematic study of what controls are the most effective, and triangulated those results. And they converged on this list of 12. We're using the CIS safeguards that are not the only important things
Right.
to do in cybersecurity, but we felt hella confident we could go to people and say, these 12 things
Yeah.
are super important. Right?
Yeah, getting bang for the buck.
Yeah.
In
Exactly.
essence, right? So if
Exactly.
you're already limited. And
The-
then there's got to be a big difference between, you know, even if you're talking counties, I mean, the difference between assessing Stark and Lake counties in the state of Indiana, for those that are listening outside of Indiana region, you know, you've got a more densely populated county with kind of a bit of suburban metro adjacent population, and then you've got rural counties. The controls themselves are universally needed by all,
Mhm.
but even if you know, you might get better answers if you had to do 100 of those for a large county with a much more mature audience. You know, I'm not, no offense, Stark County. I'll offend you in other ways, but then, you know, if you're in a where there's a single IT guy that's the nephew of the clerk, or, you know, or there are things like that, right?
I would say, and Joe could probably speak to this a little better. I've done assessments in a lot of verticals, and with a lot of variety. And then, of course, we see variety within the local government entities we're assessing here. I think we see some places that you would expect to be more mature that are not. And we've absolutely done assessments in smaller communities, rural communities, where it's like, okay, somebody here has made some good decisions,
Yeah.
right? So I don't think it's as, you know, predictable where you're going to find maturity or lack thereof as we might go in assuming. And that's consistent with what I've seen doing assessments of big critical infrastructure facilities where you would think, well, for sure this place has its act together, right? And not always the case. The other thing I wanted to say too about the standard for completeness purposes, among other things, is our assessment not only looks at the control level, the tactical level, things like the CIS controls. Are you doing multi-factor authentication on it, you know, for administrative access? But we also selected a subset of the requirements from the Trusted CI framework. That framework is something we developed out of CACR in Trusted CI. That's an organization that we've been helping lead for about 13 years. And that framework is entirely about standing up cybersecurity as a minimally competent business operation, a business function, right? Lot of cybersecurity frameworks out there, and one thing that they almost universally miss is that layer of, do you have a budget? Is somebody on point? Is leadership involved? How? Like, is leadership making any decisions in cybersecurity? These really fundamental pieces that what we found, again, over time, lots of research, lots of work in the field across different verticals. Often those fundamentals are missing, and there's no way in hell you're going to get MFA, you know, implemented anywhere if you don't have a budget, you don't have personnel, you don't have some leadership buy-in, right? So one of the, I'll shut up after this, one of the coolest things that's come out of CyberTrack, right? NSF paid us to develop the Trusted CI framework. They didn't know at the time that they were going to get this, so this is one of the many things that we've done for them. With this work, and really led by Joe's analysis, we have the hardest empirical evidence that the Trusted CI framework is important that we've ever seen. Because we've seen tell me if I'm wrong, I'm a lawyer, not a statistician, but we've seen a very significant connection between organizations that have these basic organizational pieces in place and actually getting the controls done where the rubber meets the road and you're actually stopping stuff.
Yep, absolutely true. People that have, entities that we've assessed that have more of that governance implemented do better in implementing the safeguards portion. Yeah,
Yep.
that's absolutely true. It's significant and it's explanatory.
So when an entity engages with you and receives the assessment, what are the steps after the assessment's completed? What kind of reporting, strengths, weaknesses, remediation? What happens at the end of the engagement?
So I guess I would classify it or frame it a little bit differently. I would say that none of the folks that we've assessed are through their engagement with us. And I say that because at the very least, we have them penciled in at the time of their first assessment. We have them penciled in for reassessment. Part of that is to gauge, if you take those two goals of informing the state and then helping local governments, it's an opportunity, of course, for us to provide additional assistance to local governments with cybersecurity. But it's also the opportunity for us to measure impact with what we're doing and, provide not only advice to us as the folks running this program, but, to further elucidate what issues are you having, what barriers are you facing in implementing our recommendations. Those types of things, I know, at least from my perspective, if the new CIO, we're not Jeff Allen. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, as we move on in state leadership, to say, oh, hey, this is gold, right? Here's some empirical evidence about barriers to implementation of very specific recommendations that we know to be powerful from the research. So, I guess that's,
so the entities receive a report that they could take action on.
So yeah,
there's usable.
That was a philosophical answer. I'll give you the technical one, right? The moment we send the report, we also send them a short feedback questionnaire, right, about their experience, and then 6 months after that, the organization, and every 6 months thereafter, they get an impact questionnaire. We don't have a perfect rate of return on those.
Sure.
Like the whole thing is voluntary,
yeah.
but it's a decent rate of return considering. And with that, we're taking the opportunity to check in. Hey, have you made progress on anything? How do you feel about your experience now after some time has passed? And so, Joe mentioned reassessments. These organizations, a lot of time, they got to get through a fiscal cycle to make at least some of the changes that we're recommending that they do. So we're looking 2 years out for reassessment, and we use those impact questionnaires to bridge the gap.
Mm-hmm.
Now, maybe I'm getting ahead of myself, but when we started this up, it was all about conducting these assessments, and we've got to keep costs under control, so they have to have a beginning, middle, and end.
Right.
As we've gotten in there, of course, we're seeing things where we think if we just had a little bit more time with these people,
Right.
we could help them a lot
yeah.
more.
Move some needles, yeah.
But it's out of scope for our agreement.
Yeah.
So we've got other proposals on the table.
Right.
We've got hopes and dreams to be able to do more. The assessment piece will always be an important piece, but it's not the only thing. As you all know, we have the capability to do a lot more.
But what I have seen, because I've sat on some of the committees with you, Craig, and now George sits on, and Joe is, involved with as well, is that some of the activity that, the activity that we're doing in CyberTrack is starting to feed into government spend, government policy, government activity, saying, because we have, as you guys said, we have empirical data. These are the places that we are seeing, now that we've assessed a number of these entities, where an investment by the state, whether it's through infrastructure spending bills or whatever, would actually make an impact. So while it's not always necessarily the individual entity that has the budget cycle or in this budget cycle or can do, there are immediate things, just turning on some policy, just doing some that's happening. But if it's solutions that are expensive or something, we are starting to, this program is starting to influence state level activity to overall increase cyber posture. Agree?
Agree. I just want to see it build and continue, right? I think we're at the beginning of that story.
Yeah.
I'll say, like, I believe that the assessments that we're doing by themselves are having an impact.
Mhm.
And some places it's going to have a huge impact. They
Right.
take it, they run with it. Other places not much at all, and then we'll see, everything in between. But to your point, Matt, we're gonna run into problems that we can write lengthy recommendations, essays, lots of citations, lots of pointers to tools,
Yeah.
and they're not going to get done without a community level, a state level,
Yeah.
a societal level action
Yeah.
to push resources. And I like where you're going, right? One of the things that we see in cyber is, oh, well, we're such and such a type of organization is not doing enough, so let's have some compliance regime.
Right.
And scare people into doing it.
Yeah. Not the best.
We need people need help.
Yeah.
They need resources. There's not enough expertise to go around. We got to find ways to spread it around.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So without publicly shaming or celebrating any individual, of the assessments you've completed or engaged with so far, how is the state of Indiana doing for its cyber posture?
Just as bad as everybody else.
We will shame every county, every city, every state.
That was
Are there
that was
moments?
as good a summary as
Are
I
there
think.
glimpses of positivity? Like there's
Sure.
okay,
Success
all right,
stories.
all right, so there are some
where-
positive.
Give us an example. Again, maybe not name. Let's keep the innocent,
Yeah.
not name names. But if one of our teams have gone in and said, "Oh man, this group right here, they're doing it. They're doing pretty well." Like, I'd love to hear a good success story, and maybe what was unique or special about that case that they did well.
Well, one of the most interesting cases to me was we had an assessment where the IT and cybersecurity functions were outsourced, except for the highest level leadership engagement. So even the governance piece of cybersecurity, which they were doing reasonably well on, was all outsourced to a contractor. And it was a really interesting dynamic. It involved multiple entities, and it was just kind of like it. I guess I didn't think of that until just now, but it reminded me a lot about of our partnership with IU and with the state on CyberTrack itself. Right, it was kind of a mirror of that. All of these entities, you wouldn't expect this group of entities to be so effective in cybersecurity, but they did an excellent job overall. We've seen some really high performing folks. We've seen some folks in very small locations that performed well as well. So
I don't think we've seen any organization that I would really call high performing. Right.
Fair.
The
relatively,
we assess this small set of things that we know are really fundamental, really powerful, and I don't believe we have assessed a single organization that is actually implementing all of those things.
No.
Okay, so I mean that's not good. And there's a bell curve, and the hump of that bell curve is way behind where we would want to see it.
Right.
Do you think that's?
But
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
sorry. No,
no,
I just want to
finish.
I think what the kind of success story that I think we see somewhat regularly are organizations where if we take their temperature today and we give them a score, we don't give them the score. But if we're thinking that way, yeah, they're not doing great, but we can see that they're on the path, right? We can see that organizational leadership is coming online and is engaged in a way that a couple of years ago it wasn't like this, but now we're getting some attention. Now we're getting some help. We run across a lot of folks, whether they have cybersecurity in their job title or not, and most of them don't, who their response to us is like, thank goodness somebody has got my back. I've been asking for this for years, and now we've got some independent experts that are validating me. So I do feel like there's some positive momentum there that we can't capture with one temperature take, right?
Yeah.
I think another another type of success story that we've seen, not across the board, but we've seen it enough times. It gets us excited when we see it. Are organizations where whoever it is that we're interacting with, a clerk, treasurer, or whatever, does not have a ton of technical expertise. But our teams are able to give good enough, actionable enough advice that those people walk away and can get something done. They might not be the one like literally turning the wrench on something, but we're getting positive feedback even in those situations where there's not a clear in-house, expert on cyber stuff.
So across the board, you said there's most of them or all of them are not implementing all of the controls and things that they need to do. Do you think that's a result of them being not aware of the controls that they need to implement, not having the budget, or willingly just ignoring the things that they need to do to be proper posture?
While Joe thinks about it, I'll say all of the above.
Okay.
I would say that too, although I'm hesitant to characterize anyone as just blatantly knowing they have these responsibilities and blatantly ignoring them. Although that might be a fair characterization in some cases.
Yeah, I mean, and I always think of this as, I'm not thinking about individual human beings. These are organizations, and organizations have leaders, and those leaders may not have any cybersecurity expertise, but they haven't delegated. It's their responsibility. Even 5 years ago, if a senior leader in a small organization was kind of ignorant of the seriousness of a cybersecurity threat, it's like, okay, yeah, we're still fighting the good fight, trying to get visibility on this problem. Today,
it's definitely more common knowledge.
Right. And so I'm not saying that a mayor is supposed to know, the ins and outs of exactly what multi-factor is and how to get it done or whatever. Right. But like, at this point, I think the whole world is on notice. This is a serious issue. And if you don't know what to do, you should be asking us, asking your people, asking somebody, okay, what are the most important things for us to do? If you're a leader and you're not turning to folks saying, what do we do?
How do they reach out to you?
To us?
Yeah.
A lot of ways.
Plug it. Yeah.
I'll give you Joe's cell phone number.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so as Craig mentioned, bringing people in is still quite challenging, getting them into the program. And so to some, how do they find us? Well, we're out there in the space a lot. We're out there with IoT at their events. We're out with AIM and the counties and in their events. So we're doing a lot of we're putting a lot of road miles in that regard and doing a lot of showing of the colors here. But sometimes I think, as in a lot of cases, some of the best marketing or advertising or awareness building that we do is we hit folks with this assessment. They love it. And they tell three other,
right?
Because they know each other,
right?
Hey, try this. It's illuminating. You'll learn a lot, and it might make you feel like you have some kind of handle on what you need to do with cybersecurity.
But I'll also say, we have a website.
Yeah,
it's incybertrack.org.
incybertrack.org.
Yep. And if you go there,
is there a picture of you on there, Craig?
Pictures of all of us.
It's not large. It's not as large as I would like, but there's.
Let's see if we can get that. But look over at Eric. I think he probably did that website.
Eric's like, when's somebody going to mention the website?
But there's a form, a sign up, an interest form. If you're an organization that qualifies for cybertrack assessment or or if you want to get a hold of us, fill out the frickin' form. So that's one way to get to us. I think the cyberTAP has a website, contact information readily available there. It's not obscured. Same thing for the Center for Applied Cybersecurity Research. So, and both of our organizations, work far beyond what
Yeah.
the strict definition of
Sure.
local government.
Mhm.
So I think there's lots of ways to get a hold of us, but we're definitely
IN
open for business.
cybertrack.org. I think that's important. Now, before we kind of close on the topic here, I heard it mentioned some kind of the future state of the program. So we mentioned reassessments. So there's a really important aspect of going back to some of these entities, kind of to Mike, some of your questions you were asking, going back and doing a reassessment, an additional health check, see what's changed, see what still needs to be done. That's on the horizon. You mentioned kind of proposals in for a resource center where I think, Craig, you had mentioned, if we had more time and more ability to work more with these folks, that starts to solve that as well.
Yep.
But I'm also aware of a slightly expanded scope as it relates to some of the utilities. So I think that might be worth mentioning. You want to tell us a little bit about some of that progress that's been made? Because I think that's the future, and if there's anything else I missed.
Yeah, so just within the so we've got a number of proposals in front of different potential, sponsors for things that would expand our work. But regarding the utilities, we got approval to reallocate some of the funds of our existing award to develop an operational technology module that would expand what we can do with an individual organization. So they'd still get the basic CyberTrack assessment, we look at their IT space and all, but then we'd be able to push in and really take quite a close look at the operational technology piece. We're right in the middle of the R&D process for building that module right now, following a lot of the same rigor that we did to get to the methodology and standard that we have for CyberTrack, the standard CyberTrack. OT is important. It always has been, right? You start talking about OT cybersecurity, and you're talking about life and limb.
Yep.
Okay,
Critical infrastructure.
that's been true all along. But a big inspiration for that more recently is the threat to water, wastewater. Right? That's a not secret, very well known place where our adversaries are looking to hurt us or be very well prepared to hurt us, and that'll affect a lot of lives if that comes to pass in any kind of big systematic way. So we're both trying to reach further, get organizations that we haven't had many come through the door yet, as well as provide not an absolutely comprehensive, but a bigger scoped assessment to really touch on that OT piece in a way that's hard to do with the standard assessment.
Great. Well, I think that's exciting. I think the program is I think it's a feather in our collective caps. I think it's a pretty special thing when we think about what the state of Indiana has committed, what our two universities are committing resource-wise to doing this. Mike, in the presentation that you guys were doing earlier, I heard a statistic that I think was really, really special, and it's that, keep me honest here, 52% of Indiana's population is it 52%? Has been assessed basically. So
touched in some way.
So
but
where the people are, that's where we've been. So
geographically or
community
community based.
If we're talking about 300 assessments, if we've only done 100 and however many, but that represents 52% of the population of citizens. So that's really exciting to me as a resident of the state of Indiana, one who uses resources from county and city and local governments. It's wonderful, and I think
maybe they got a poor grade, so I don't know.
Well, I haven't actually gone and looked at the ones that maybe were in my community here, but at least they're doing something.
That's
to
true.
Craig's
That's
point,
true.
right? Like that's success. They're the people that have invited us in to do this are on a journey, right? They may have scored a 4 if there was a 4 out of 10, but there's a path to a 7, and that's exciting as a citizen of the state. And I think the fact that we've hit so many residents or residents live underneath the umbrella of those entities is really great.
Yeah. And that population percentage is impressive, and I'm happy to see it. At the same time, programmatically, and I know I'm not contradicting you here, but we want to get to everybody.
Yeah.
Right. And we're hoping the program survives this immediate award, right? That it can continue. we've done a lot of assessments in rural communities. We've done a lot of assessments of quite small operations and organizations. So I think when we start chopping up the map and looking at Indiana, the population centers are important, but we're really trying to take this everywhere.
Yeah.
So
100%, yeah.
The vast majority of our assessments have been for entities that are classified as rural, which obviously a reminder, Indiana is a rural state by and large. So we're going to get a lot of rural assessments where it increments that population impact number with tiny little numbers.
So if an entity reaches out to you to participate and maybe they don't qualify based off of whatever the restricting criteria is, can they still receive this type of assessment?
Yeah, I mean, we're in the process of working through a couple of requests like that right now, and actually exploring ways that we can just work more seamlessly together, just to do it, and not have the lawyers get all tangled up in a bunch of layered agreements. But I would say right now we're getting our feet under us with how to do that and how to do that efficiently. But if somebody reaches out today, they're not going to be the first one to present us with this opportunity.
That's great.
Right? So, yeah.
Well, thanks, guys, for coming in and talking Cybertrack. I appreciate it. But before we close, we have probably one of the most important questions that Mike and I ask, and I don't know.
I thought we started with those.
No, when we talk sports, that's the way we open. But one of the way in which we like to close is to ask our guests, especially a first-time guest like Craig, favorite movie, TV show that is cybersecurity related. And there's no prep.
So,
we don't give. Hey, listen, we don't give the questions ahead of time, folks. So this is on the fly, ready to go. I'm sure we've asked this of Joe before. I don't necessarily remember the answer, but it's in pop culture. So we'll even expand it.
Can I
TV, movie, book? What?
Can I give two answers?
Sure, absolutely.
So I'll give my favorite because it's just ridiculous, and I'm gonna blank. This might be multiple games, but in video game space,
Okay.
sometimes it's like Metal Gear or something. You've got somebody doing tactical stuff, and one of the skills they have is they can hack something. They can hack their way
By
through
holding
a
one
button
on the controller.
and it's like spamming the controller. If it's if it's really advanced, you got to shake the controller or something like that. That's a favorite. For me,
love Metal Gear. I do love the Metal Gear series, by the way.
Oh, I do. I am having. Man, I hope CACR. When's this going to be aired? Is it live?
No. Next week. It goes up next week. It goes up next week.
I'm having Metal Gear CACR stickers made.
Yo.
No.
with
I wouldn't mind having one of
Oh
those.
yeah, we'll send a few. But my other answer, it's not a favorite, but in terms of like something that I found particularly scarring was Leave the World Behind.
Okay.
It's like a 2023-ish post-apocalyptic movie, and it
I don't know that this is a new one.
Is
for
this
me.
the Nicolas Cage one?
No,
Okay.
this was like Ethan Hawke.
Oh wait.
It's not based off that book series.
Wait,
right?
is it Julia Roberts?
Yes.
I did see this. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Ethan Hawke, Julia Roberts, Mahershala Ali.
Yeah, so
Okay, I did see it. Very good. And then, not all the spoilers and things aside, like the kind of propaganda, the littering
Dude.
of things from. Was it
other than the
was it
Tesla,
Iran? Was it China? Was it what?
other than the Tesla pileup, all happening in one
Yes.
spot
Yes.
on one on ramp, like I thought. Not revealing any, state secrets here or anything, but I just thought,
Yeah.
damn, that looks realistic in terms of
yeah.
in terms
didn't
of
see this one?
cyber being
I don't-
used as a
So good.
capability
How old are we talking?
along.
Like within 2 years.
Yeah, within the last couple of years.
And was it a streaming movie? I think it was a streaming
I
movie.
don't know, man. It just messed me up.
This is where we need Jim. Jim's not here to look things up. I'm looking at Eric. The name of it one more time.
Leave the World
Leave the World
Behind, I
Behind.
think.
Yeah, but it's definitely I've seen it. So it's Ethan Hawke and they go into like an Airbnb for like a little vacation near California, right?
No. This is New York.
Was it New York?
Yeah, this is like the New York suburb. It's where my sister lives.
Yes, that's
New
right.
York
that's
suburbs. Yeah, but anyway,
Right. That's right, because they go outside of New York City and they're getting an Airbnb. That's right.
When you think about how in a full-blown hot war, how cyber would be used alongside you know conventional stuff and how it could play in, it
I
was
like
just
that one too.
yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't
Yeah.
say okay, it's my favorite cyber-related film or whatever, with a thematic element of cyber, but yeah, that was a good one. Of recent delivery, yeah. And the Tesla scene that you're talking about, again, that's an interesting scene. Again, maybe not.
Metaphorical in so many ways potentially.
yeah.
Right? They were not Cybertrucks, by the way. They were just like
They were the old
the
threes and
sedans or whatever.
Ys,
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's a good one. Joe, what about you? Anything in cyber pop culture? Remind us, did you have a favorite cyber movie? You seem like a hackers guy.
I don't know.
Swordfish.
I don't really have one, and to be honest with you, I've been distracted over the last couple of minutes because when Craig asked if this was live, I thought to myself, yeah, like we'd air this thing live.
Yeah, that's so dangerous with this.
like risk management. Like no way that would happen. Actually, the old school one I would like that probably maybe doesn't get a lot of play as a cyber attack movie is GoldenEye.
Okay.
All right.
I thought it's old school. I kind of like it, and anyway, I guess I would go with that one.
One of the best
The
N64
listeners would
games
have
of all
me
time.
I'm a sneakers guy.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm the Robert Redford, the great cast Sidney Poitier and Ben Kingsley. I love sneakers from a cyber and social engineering and that. But you had another.
I have another one. I
Okay,
can't
yeah.
let this go. So my
don't.
favorite movie is Heat.
Okay.
Michael
Oh,
Mann.
wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
That's my favorite movie.
Yeah.
Not The Heat.
Not-
Two different movies.
Robert
Heat.
De Niro.
Yeah, Robert De Niro, Al Pacino,
Right.
Kilmer, right?
Yep.
Yep.
Heat,
Yeah.
heist,
Kilmer,
bank
White
robbery movie.
Corvette. Yeah. So that's
Yeah,
my
great-
favorite.
yeah.
That's
That's
my
okay.
favorite movie.
Okay.
There is an extremely realistic hacker thing in it, but it's just this little piece of the movie. But there is a great quote. Like, you all should play this audio clip of this guy talking about just reaching out and like grabbing bank information. It's like it's just flying through the
I
air.
definitely
you just,
think
you
Eric
just need,
should. Yeah.
You just got to grab it.
think
You just
Eric
got to
should
know
do it.
how to grab it. And
Yeah.
and here's the funny thing too is like the dude looks just like you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So devilishly bald, devilishly You know what's funny is I said to Eric as I came in because he's trying a new lighting thing in here. I said, "You picked a heck of a day to try new lighting with the 3 bald heads coming in here in the shot. Mike is the only one." And had Joe not just shaven, I mean, the 3 of us, sans my glasses, we could just be brothers. So
Well, I also have the same type of glasses, but I don't wear them on a regular basis. So.
yeah, I can't go without mine. So.
But that
And
has
none
been
of us
a meme.
like Mike because he got to keep his hair in his old age.
I cannot help genetics. I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, I forced him to grow a beard finally
You could-
after a year, so maybe I just start shaving the top of his head.
You could show some empathy and shave your damn head.
All right. Well, let's wrap this up. Joe, Craig, thank you so much for joining. Great work on CyberTrack. Again, a feather in our collective cap here at Purdue CyberTAP and the CACR at IU. Our friends during Hate Week and every week.
Yes.
Our friends at IU. I think it's been a great partnership.
I love working with you guys.
Likewise.
Absolutely
Likewise.
love it.
Yeah. Likewise. It's been fantastic. Mike's been fun for us to jump back
It
in
is.
and fill
We're
in.
gonna have to go away again though.
Fill in for George and Jim.
George is
while
coming
they're-
back.
Yeah, George and Jim are doing real work today, and so they said fill in and have a little fun with our friends, Joe and Craig. Easy one for us to do, but we'll close it out. Thank you guys again to all the listeners. We'd love to hear from you. You can always contact us, cyberTAP.Podcast@Purdue.edu. We'll see you next time. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.